Hello, my dear friends. Welcome to my channel, or welcome back. My name is Sarita. Really glad to see you today. I have a double candle review for you today from Yankee. And this is one of their more recent collections. They had three major-ish collections so far this year. There was a Italy collection, and then there was Sun and Games, and then there was this little a garden collection, which again was very seasonal and on point. Yankee Candle has been doing some things well this first part of the year, and one of them is that their collections have made sense, have been seasonal, have been well thought out, have been the right range, conceptually work, marketing not so bad, if not quite good, especially in the case of the Italy collection. So yeah, impressive. So this came out, gosh, this garden collection came out maybe a month and a half, 2 months ago, something like that. About the same time that the On the Vine or whatever it is from Bath and Body Works came out, same thing, and there was a tomato candle in this garden collection from Yankee. If I remember correctly, there were 4 candles in this collection. I want to say 4, but it might have been 5. These two, which I'm going to talk to you about, Emerald Herbs and Sun Gold Tomato. Then there was also an herbal tea one. Very bad. Absolutely very, very, very bad. Basically just smells like a cough drop, if that's what you're after. It's supposed to be a honey tea or whatever, but just think of like one of those mentholated honey cough drops. It's a really, really bad candle. I don't think anyone liked that one. And then there was one that was supposed to be about rain, spring rain. Again, very thoughtful, very on point for this collection. Unfortunately, it was one of their dime a dozen men's cologne fragrances. So it didn't really have much aquatic in it, and it wasn't a beautiful, fresh, authentic, refreshing kind of spring rain. So the 2 candles that I can recommend and that seemed fairly decent are these 2, the Sun Gold Tomato right here and the Emerald Herbs right here. You guys know that I'm an herbal kind of girl. I have to be honest though, I did not initially pick these up once they came out. I smelled them in store and I thought they smelled weak. And I just thought, I'm not really sure. And I decided at the time, all they had were these tumblers, like the largest tumblers, rather than the 3 wicks. And in time, my store got in the 3 wicks, but for a while, I didn't even think it came in 3 wick, and it does come in 3 wick. And also, I believe those 3 wicks are still $8 in the semi-annual sale, and these large ones are $10. So this is a great moment actually for me to review these candles, because if you're interested in them at all, you can get them at a very, very good price on the Yankee website. So generally speaking, the cliff notes of this review here is that neither candle is a disaster. Neither candle is a slam dunk. I have to say that both of them, they performed similarly, and both of them are also very similar in their fragrance profile, in that to me it seems like both of them are shy of one fragrance note, 1 or 2. They're a little bit, they need 1 or 2 other fragrance notes to really make these fragrances pop. And so in that sense, they did seem anemic to me, not only in performance, although the performance wasn't terrible, but not only in performance, but also just in terms of the fragrance profiles themselves. They seemed weak. They lacked assertiveness. Both of these candles just lacked a certain amount of confidence as fragrances. And so for that reason, I can't really highly recommend them. However, They were decent candles. They were decent candles. And in my opinion, I actually like the Sun Gold Tomato better than the On the Vine from Bath and Body Works. They are completely different fragrances though. So, and neither one of them were like fantastic. Neither one of them were terrible either, you know. Both this one and the On the Vine one were good enough in their own specific way. Two completely different candles. On the Vine, which I'm going to review probably in a couple weeks, On the Vine is much more perfumey, whereas Sun Gold Tomato is not as perfumey. So they're completely different like takes on a tomato plant or a tomato fragrance. But for my money, I preferred the Sun Gold Tomato. And if the 3-wick performs better than this 2-wick does, I would actually be interested in burning it again, although I don't know that I would go out of my way for it. Yeah, okay, so that's the preamble done here. As you can see, I have burned these all the way down, and given that they were a 2-wick large tumbler from Yankee Candle, it did take me many moons to get through these two. You're welcome. Like I said, would totally have bought the 3 wicks, not only because you get sometimes a little more oomph out of the fragrance, but also like it takes you shorter to get through the entire candle. And if you're a person like me that burns a ton of candles and reviews a ton of candles, getting through them a little bit quicker is a godsend, that is for sure. However, these were the only 2 that were available at the time. And I was exchanging them, I think, for other tumblers. And so they wanted me to keep the big tumbler, and that's fine. God bless. So I did burn these all the way down. It took a long time. As you can see, they were moderately sooty here. They've got some darkness here on top, but very impressive given how often it was burned to get all the way through it. And also the length of the burns. Again, very impressive formula from Yankee Candle. This is a soy blend, and I believe that they're just kind of standardizing this soy blend now for every candle in their fleet. So whereas before they did have a good amount of their fleet just being the traditional 100% paraffin, now they're gonna do the soy blend for everything. If you've watched my channel for any amount of time, you know how I feel about 100% paraffin. I'm a 100% paraffin girl. Hi, my name is Sarita. And I know that that's not a popular opinion right now. I know that everybody's like a clean girly. They want the cleanest burn, etc., etc. I personally love paraffin. And so I do think there's probably going to be a ceiling, and I have noticed a ceiling with the Yankee Candle soy blend. It will really only go so strong or so powerful. Whereas I think that the ceiling for like a 100% paraffin formula is much higher. That said, and I've said this several times, I suspect that Yankee Candle has been sabotaging their 100% paraffin fleet for a good long time. They probably have to put less oils in it to be able to get a performance that is somewhat on par with a soy blend. And given the fact that they have had a split fleet in their store of 100% paraffin and then a soy blend, they don't want half of their fleet really significantly outperforming the other one, especially because they've been trying to promote their soy blend. So I suspect that they have really been running the paraffin into the ground and certainly not exploiting it for its greatest potential. So for those of you who say, but I can't smell the 100% paraffin classic tumblers at Yankee Candle, you are absolutely correct. You cannot smell them. That said, it has much more to do with the fact that I think Yankee Candle has not been putting very many scent oils in them. And you generally do have to put a lot more scent oils in your soy for the fact that the soy doesn't perform quite as well. Anyway, that's a lot of words. But yeah, I think that that's what's happening. And obviously they just don't want to do their paraffin anymore. Right now we're in an era where like customers are wanting not to have paraffin. And it's partly because they've been told ad nauseum by a lot of clean people that paraffin is toxic in your house, etc., etc. So it's a little bit of a trend right now. And I think a lot of people don't realize all of the amazing things that paraffin does for home fragrance. And the fact that most candle companies, and I would put Kringle in that category, I would also put Yankee in that category, and Village as well, have developed over the last couple years, or the last decade really, an amazing 100% paraffin formula that is actually very clean burning, and in some cases more clean burning than some soy formulas are. But despite all that, the trends have dictated that paraffin is out right now. Whether or not that will be like a trend that lasts longer than this decade is an entirely different matter. There's already backlash in the beauty and cosmetic industry with the clean stuff, with the paraben-free, et cetera, et cetera. I fully suspect, frankly, that we are starting to feel a little bit of a backlash in the home fragrance community with the clean burning soy formulas that are A, more expensive, and B, don't capture fragrance clearly or strongly. And once consumers are starting to kind of put two and two together with that, I think there is gonna be a lot of backlash about soy. And who knows, maybe paraffin will quietly start becoming the majority formula in these soy blends, even though they will still call it a soy blend, etc. Anyway, I didn't mean to have that huge preamble, but anyway, for the present, Yankee Candle is just doing the soy blend, which is this soy blend. And again, like I said, very impressive formula. I have to be honest though, this is about the level of sootiness that their 100% paraffin was getting to. Both of them were impressive formulas. Yeah, so Emerald Herbs, and I burned all the way down to the wick clips on all of these. A beautiful green color with this clear label, and then this kind of hand-painted thing, which is fine because this is a dominant green label up against another green underneath it. Probably not the most popping label. Same with this one, which also has a lot of red in it. Behind the red wax, probably also not great, but I do generally prefer this look to the new labels from Yankee Candle for their signature jars, which is quite ugly and quite cheap. So I still think we're gonna see a lot of this for their like limited edition collections, but if the candle goes into their core collection, it's gonna have that ugly ass label, which I hope is very short-lived. I think they're gonna get such bad feedback, frankly, from their consumers that once again, we will see a big brand marketing change. Probably, I'm gonna say right now, 2 years. I think that that label is gonna last all of 2 years and we're gonna hate every second of it. So just kind of gird your loins for that. But as with the clip art, like it didn't really last that long. So I don't think that the ugly ass one is gonna last real long either. Anyway, let's talk about the candles. Let's talk about the herbal one first. So here's Emerald Herbs right here. Emerald Herbs, and I've got the blurb here. The blurb is, your hard work in the garden pays off in abundance. Scents of tangy lime, fresh herbs, and ripe golden tomatoes. Oh wait, I'm sorry. I apologize. No, this is the tomato blurb. Let's talk about the herbal one. Herbal. Crisp fragrances of freshly picked lemon, ambrosial thyme, and just tilled soil fill the air with a verdant tranquility. Okay, that's your blurb. Your top notes are fresh lemon, eucalyptus, green grass. Mid notes are thyme, herbs, indiscriminate, garden dew. Base notes are geranium. Man, geranium is trending right now. Geranium, moss, and earthy soil. Okay, those are your notes. And when the collection originally came out and I looked at those notes, I'm like, oh, I really hope that that's good, right? It is good, it's just not great. And that goes for both of these candles. Good, not great. What I like is that there's very little sweetness here. There is a back note of sweetness coming from the geranium floral. And actually, geranium isn't bad here. I don't love the note of geranium, but because geranium has this very funky, sometimes metallic, sometimes like grossly sweet, but kind of in a medicinal kind of way, weirdly up against the herbs, doesn't do too badly. When geranium is its own leading lady, it's a lot. It's a lot. A la the Lucky Sweater candle, also coming from Yankee Candle in the Sun of Games collection. That was a lot. It was a lot. But geranium thoughtfully blended with other notes actually is nice. And in this candle is quite nice, actually. The geranium adds a little bit of warmth, sweetness, a little bit of a round floral aspect underneath the herbs that really rounds it out, but still keeps it in that like quasi herbal medicinal kind of category. But also cuts against the like aromatherapy medicinal with the floral aspect of it. So it's really quite nice. The top notes here are a pretty assertive thyme for sure. And to be honest, I don't know if I'm getting a whole lot more than thyme. There's definitely not any mint. There might be a little bit of sage in here, but it doesn't go poultry seasoning, which makes me think that the note back behind it is actually more of an earthy moss. And they actually mention moss several times here. So I would say kind of a mossy earthiness. Sage kind of has that mossy earthiness as well as kind of a tea note. Yeah, if there's any other herb here that's prominently sounding, I would say it's probably sage, but this is for the most part a thyme geranium candle. And it's not bad. It just needs, like I said, one or two other notes to really fill it out and become something special. A rosemary would have been nice in here, I think. And then they mention fresh lemon. I'm not getting, oh, I guess so. I guess there is a little bit, like very much on top, kind of hovering over it all. There's this aroma of lemon. But I think what would have been nicer actually is if it's a lemon verbena or a lemongrass, because then that would have, again, added another dimension of herbs in it while also making it a little bit fruity and a little bit citrusy. I think that would have been a much more wise decision. And I think it would have maybe given a few extra notes. This candle is just a couple notes shy of great, but it's good. It's good. Unfortunately, it did not do well in the open concept. I would say in the open concept, I got like a 3 out of it, maybe a 4, something like that. However, in the back bedroom, it did significantly better. All shut up in a fairly like enclosed, moderate space. I could get it up to a soft 6, 6.5, something like that. I don't know that it was the greatest fragrance to have in a back bedroom, but it was okay. It was okay. This is definitely the fragrance that you kind of want in your kitchen, and given the modernity of most kitchens, often that's an open concept area. So unfortunately, this isn't going to do well in the parts of the house that probably it should be in. There's that. I wouldn't purchase it again. It wasn't a bad herbal candle. I've definitely smelled worse herbal candles for sure. And there is an authenticity in the thyme note, no question. And the geranium is welcome. It just needs a few other little elements to make it a truly well-rounded, even herbal candle. The performance for me also was not quite good enough to recommend it for, or at least for me to consider making it a repurchase. I want to say caveat though, I was watching Summer, Fragrance Junkie, and she had exactly the opposite take on these two candles. So she didn't get anything from herbal herbs, or no, was it whatever it was? For me, the Sun Gold Tomato did better than the Emerald Herbs, whereas she did the opposite. She thought Emerald Herbs did pretty well in the open concept, and Sun Gold Tomato wasn't giving her anything. So just a disclaimer in that regard, it seems like probably the performance on these might be a little bit uneven, but they performed similarly. Neither one is gonna like fill your house. And probably either one or both is going to be a little bit disappointing to you in terms of strength and throw. But again, it may be because the fragrance profile itself is not It's just a little thin. It's a little thin. So anyway, that was Emerald Herbs. No, I wouldn't necessarily highly recommend it or repurchase it, but it wasn't bad. It really wasn't. And I've smelled much worse, and I have experienced performance that is much worse. So it was really fine. Perhaps in the 3-wick, it might do better. All right, let's talk about Sun Gold Tomato. And I started reading the blurb for it, so I'll just reread it. Your hard work in the garden pays off in abundance. Scents of tangy lime, fresh herbs, and ripe golden tomatoes picked straight from the vine. All right, your top notes are tomato leaf, tangy lime, and grapefruit, interestingly. Mid notes are garden mint, golden tomato, black pepper. Base notes, tomato vine, vetiver, and fresh herbs. Indiscriminate. So I liked this one, and I would repurchase this one over the Emerald Herbs. It's kind of a strange fragrance. I will tell you this. I am getting a tomato vine note, but it's kind of a back note, and there's a bitterness to it for sure. And I don't know if that's the vetiver or the black pepper speaking there, although I don't know that it's, I might have preferred a little bit more black pepper. The dominant note here is sweet and fruity. To me, this smells, it only smells like a tomato because of the tomato vine in it. If the tomato vine aspect was taken out of it, I think that the fruitiness here is much more true fruit as opposed to a tomato. And I know a tomato is a fruit, but it doesn't really smell savory. To be honest, it smells almost like a strawberry or a cherry, like that kind of level of sweetness and fruitiness. And I don't know if that's a tomato note up against an enormous amount of grapefruit. There isn't a sharp acidity to this, even though they mention tangy lime and grapefruit. It doesn't go overly citrusy or acidic at all. In fact, if I smelled it, those are not the fruits I would go to initially. If it does have those fruits in it, it's definitely like not as zesty grapefruit or lime. It's a very subdued, almost flat citrus note. But like I said, to me, it comes off more like a cherry or a strawberry, but kind of in a very generic kind of way. That said, there are as I was burning it, I was thinking to myself, there are so few strawberry candles that actually land well. They all get very cloying and very candied. And although there is an aspect of this candle that is so fruit as to almost be candied, it's actually kind of a very nice strawberry / cherry that's almost a little bit on the authentic side. It's like, given the way that cherry and strawberry fragrances come across in home fragrance, this is actually a fairly muted and less sweet version of it. But yeah, I would think cherry strawberry along with like this tomato vine that's kind of bitter and peppery. And it's kind of a very interesting combination with the high sweet fruit and then the very bitter green vine note, yeah? The savory tomato aspect of this, though, is all in that vine. And then on top of it is an almost candied, like, true fruit, like berry fruit on top of it. I actually think there was kind of an interesting balance in those two aspects, and I liked it. I don't think anyone's going to say that this is the most authentic tomato fragrance, but I really liked it. The Bath & Body Works candle on the vine, spoiler alert, is really just kind of a perfume conceptual with tomato overtones. And so for me, that candle, the sweetness of that fragrance is just a perfume sweetness, whereas the sweetness of this candle is in the fruit, and it keeps it in a botanical place as opposed to a personal fragrance space or a perfume space. And to be honest, I have to give Yankee Candle an enormous amount of credit because I have been very displeased with Yankee over the last several years. I think even in the last video that I was talking about Yankee Candle, I went on this rant about how many perfume and cologne conceptuals they have given us over the last several years. And so for them to have given us a trending tomato candle and not made it a perfume conceptual, like, I just want to give credit where credit is due here. I keep begging for a conceptual that is not a perfume and a cologne. And if you had told me that Yankee Candle would do a tomato fragrance that is not perfumey, like, I would be very pleasantly surprised. And given that many of the tomato fragrances that are coming across with the trending are in fact more elevated and perfumey, because frankly, many of the bougie influencer tomato girly fragrances lately have been personal fragrances and perfumes. For Yankee to have avoided that is really quite impressive. Unfortunately, again, it's just a few notes shy. I think that if they had bumped up the vetiver, or maybe especially bumped up the black pepper in it, if they had been able to add a little bit more true tomato flesh in there, the tomato fruit as opposed to a cherry or a strawberry, that might have helped a little bit more in terms of the complexity. And honestly, if they had added the mossy, earthy note from this candle, this herbal candle, that might have given it another dimension as well. It's just, for me, it's a couple fragrance notes shy of being really great. That said, for me, the performance on this one was better than the herbal one. This one I was able to keep in the open concept for the entire time. I did not have to take it back into the back bedroom. Admittedly, in a hurricane, it got up in the open concept to a 5.5, maybe a soft 6. And I know that's not great in the open concept, but it's better than a 3 or a 4. And I was able to burn it in my kitchen area / living open concept area. So I was pleased with that. Perhaps the 3-wick would be even stronger. And I would be tempted at $8 to pick up another one and just kind of see. That being said, it wasn't a candle that I'm going to fantasize about for a long time. It wasn't brilliant. It wasn't brilliant. It wasn't a candle that I definitely need to come back every single year. However, Yankee Candle, as many candle companies, have shelves full of candles that are really mediocre, you know? So certainly this clears that bar. And is kind of a nice stripped down botanical candle that you might want to see in early spring or late spring. So yeah, either one of them, I don't, just adjust your expectations, but either one of them at $8 or $10 respectively is probably going to be worth that price at least. So if you're interested in another tomato candle that is not Bath & Body Works's, definitely check it out. Make sure to get the 3-wick, and like I said, Summer had really, really bad luck with this one in terms of performance. I had pretty good luck with it. It still wasn't like a 7 or an 8, but it was decent even in my open concept area. And with the fruitish aspect of it, it might do okay in your back bedroom. I don't know that it's a bedroom fragrance, but at least it's balanced enough botanically that you might be able to get away with it. Maybe more than the thyme growing in your back bedroom. So there you go. That is Emerald Herbs and Sun Gold Tomato. Not bad. Not bad. And again, I think Yankee Candle is, generally speaking, doing better than Bath & Body Works so far this year. So they have had in every single collection 1 or 2 candles that are at least decent, if not more than decent. And there have been thoughtful collections. They haven't been redundant of each other. And yeah, I've been fairly impressed. The bar is quite low right now for home fragrance. No one is doing anything really. And so it's easy for Yankee Candle to shine like a star. And don't get me wrong, it's not actually that shiny of a star, but when nobody is shining at all, let's let Yankee Candle have its moment, yeah? And you could do far worse burning candles here in late spring, early summer than Sun Gold Tomato and Emerald Herbs. That's what I've got for you, my friends. Thanks so much for joining me today. I still have a Bath & Body Works candle that is completely burnt and ready to review. So maybe in a few days you will see me review that candle. And as always, I'm burning other ones in my house right now, including On the Vine from Bath & Body Works. So stay tuned. I'm going to keep up with the reviews this month. I'll catch you in the next one.